Hi everyone, my name is John, and I recently turned 18 years old. I want to share my story with you and advise you to be very careful about your things, especially gifts, especially from your parents. They pay attention to the dreams and desires of children, and their gifts in life become the most valuable. Since childhood, I dreamed of becoming a photographer. Always took pictures everywhere on the phone. I was the operator of all family events. Even for the school fall ball, I was the photographer. Everyone was happy with my work, and my parents were proud that I had such a passion. After all, my dream in the future was to become a photographer. It was my birthday. As happy as most of my friends on their 18th birthday, they gave expensive gifts. But they didn't expect that my gift would be so expensive for me. On the morning of this day, my parents gave me a camera of the latest model. I was shocked because I knew that it was expensive and we could not afford it. As it turned out, it was issued as a loan for which you need to pay for more than 1 month. There was no limit to my joy. The world seemed so bright and every object in the house demanded to be photographed. The first photo was shared, where I sat happily with Dad and Mom. I photographed everything that moved and didn't move. My dream had come true, and I had already started making plans for the future. As I traveled around the world shooting the beauty of the earth, I saw the big earnings that were necessary for my parents. From that moment on, I never left my camera for a day. My class and I took 1,000 photos, and I was very happy with myself, as were my classmates. Summer was approaching, and we decided to go out into nature. I was dreamily thinking about how many cool photos I would take. There were a lot of ideas for both photography and video shooting. This day came as I now remember the worst day of my entire life. The day was in shit, in the literal sense of the word. The morning started with the fact that I overslept and almost missed the bus. I didn't even have time to do anything. I skipped breakfast, didn't feed the dog, just grabbed my bag and ran. But the mood was quickly lifted by anticipation. Nature turned out to be far away. We drove for a long time and decided to stop for 10 minutes to get some fresh air and take a couple of pictures. I really wanted to go to the toilet because I didn't have time to go in the morning. The guys were already going to take pictures against the backdrop of the mountains, and I decided to run quickly to the toilet. On the way, I remembered that I had a camera hanging around my neck, and I would have liked to leave it, but my mind switched, deciding it wasn't a problem. I went to the toilet. I don't know what the hell bit me and where the curiosity to look inside the toilet came from as my cap suddenly started to slip off my head and fall. Oh no, I need a cap to protect me from the sun. I scolded myself because I didn't like to lose my things, especially so ridiculously. Deciding, I didn't know why, to see where it is, I bent my head so low that I did not notice how the camera began to repeat the movements of the cap. I was terrified. This is my most valuable thing. I couldn't help it. I don't know why, either from fright or nerves, my body seemed to be paralyzed, and I just watched the camera fall down. I was terrified, panicked. The first thing that came to mind was to find a branch and pull it out, no matter what state it was in. At that time, I could not understand what was more important than the events that were recorded or that it was a gift from my parents. Fortunately, there were many trees nearby, and it was very easy to get a branch. Right in the toilet, I had to lie down and try to grab the camera tape with a branch. It was not so easy. The branch was a little short, but I had a little more time to dip into the hole. And here comes the tape. I kind of see the camera suddenly, not calculating the weight of its own weight, it found itself right in the shit. I was so tense that this camera literally pulled me down. There was a very sticky, unpleasant substance that hindered my movement. I struggled, almost shouted, and made strange noises. It didn't work out. It wouldn't have worked out. I tried to calm down and figure out how to get out as quickly as possible before anyone noticed. Yes, I didn't even think about how I would look from the outside and how I would stink, and whether I would be able to get rid of the stench at all. How I wanted it to be a dream at that moment. I cursed the first cap, then the camera, for considering them the most valuable. The realization that life is most valuable came only when fate decided to show me in practice. I put aside my thoughts. Well, I don't want to be stuck in shit. So I see a 1.5 meter distance to the light. I had a plan A and plan B. Plan A is to climb the walls to the outside. Plan B is to call for help. But plan B had bad and shameful consequences. I went with plan A. First, I felt for the camera. Then I found a bump that I could lean on, but getting out of this mess was not so easy. An extra 10 kilos grabbed me and dragged me down. I tried to get out every time, again and again, knowing that nothing would come of it. It's like the pressing keys when a computer freezes. You just click each time hoping that a miracle will happen and the computer will work. Suddenly, I thought I heard the voices of my classmates. To be honest, I already didn't care if they were laughing at me. The most important thing was to get out as soon as possible. I tried to jump one last time with all my strength, but I was inside again. There was even a sound. My classmates started laughing about whether I had drowned in the toilet. I was very ashamed, but I could not stay here all my life. I screamed when a classmate knocked on the toilet, not understanding what was happening. Their voices changed from happy to anxious. I looked up and saw 4 of them looking at me. It seemed that they were so close. I am so weak that I couldn't get out on my own. I cursed myself. The situation couldn't be worse. The boys brought some big branches, and I grabbed them. They pulled, and I just had to hold the camera tight and keep cursing myself. As soon as they pulled us out, we were all just silent, and they could see from my face that I wasn't laughing right now. Fortunately, there was a river nearby, and I was able to wash myself, and my classmates even put together a replacement. Someone borrowed trousers, someone just gave me a jacket. I was grateful to them, if only because they didn't laugh at me. After a long time, we decided to set up camp right here as a team. In the evening of that day, we were already laughing about everything that had happened sitting by the fire. By the way, fortunately, the camera was not damaged, and everything that was filmed was preserved. That day I realized that it was better to be extra safe and leave the camera than get stuck in the mud, and most importantly, real friends will pull you out of any dirt.
Hi everyone, my name is Nancy, and I absolutely do not remember some part of my life. The thing is, I lost my memory. Now I'll tell you how it happened and whether I was able to restore it. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel, put in likes, and write your opinion in the comments. As my parents told me, my father and I went to choose a birthday present for my mother. She really liked to bake sweets, so we found a great oven for her in the online store, and Dad wanted to see it live. Check out how it works. I asked to go there with my father. I wanted to choose flowers for her on the way, her favorite peonies. Dad stopped in the parking lot. We went to the store, chose the oven. I was very happy with the purchase. My father took it to the car, and I suddenly remembered that I had left a bouquet of flowers in the store. I ran to the market again and picked up the bouquet. A huge bunch of peonies covered half of my face as I crossed the road. All I heard was a car honking, then a sharp pain and darkness. I didn't wake up until the 15th day after the accident. The first thing I saw then was the unhappy faces of a woman and a man. I didn't immediately know where I was or what was going on. My head was throbbing with pain. My mouth was dry, and I felt as if a tractor had run over me. The strangers rushed to me with questions as to how I feel, and all I felt was fear. They scared me. A few minutes later, a man in a white coat came in, shooed everyone away, and told me not to be disturbed. My name is Dr. Simons. You were in an accident. We did brain surgery on you. Everything went well. You're in the hospital now. Tell me your name, they told me. And I looked at the doctor and wanted to answer, although it was hard, but suddenly realized that I did not know my name. This moment scared me even more. Yes, in fact, not knowing your own name is intimidating. I tried to remember something else, but I couldn't. The doctor began to write something down, and then asked if I knew these 2 people. I looked at the woman and the man and realized that their faces were vaguely familiar, but I couldn't tell them their names either. I shook my head. One of the strangers began to cry. The doctor told me to rest, and he took the adults to the corridor. It turns out they were talking about my condition. Later, I was told that I had amnesia, or more simply, blackouts. I'd forgotten some things about my life, or almost everything to be more precise. I didn't remember the 2 people in my room who had given me birth, my parents. I didn't remember my name, where I lived, what I did, but I still had a mechanical memory. This means that I automatically did some things. Drinking, eating, brushing my teeth, going to the toilet. I even listened to music and always reached for a notebook with a pen when I felt better to write down what happened during the day. This, by the way, my doctor advised me to do. After discharge from the hospital, I had a lot of work. I had to try as much as possible to return to my old life, to make my memories quickly come back to me. So I got home, went into my room, and I saw it for the first time. My first thought was, oh, horror. What? I have creepy wallpaper, and the color of the furniture is not very nice. Are you sure this is my room? My mom just laughed and said that we were just going to do repairs, because I already said that. I sat down on the bed and asked to be left alone. I needed to collect my thoughts. You know, the fact that you see strangers and then find out that it's mom and dad is not very pleasant. Intuitively, I knew that I could trust them, but my brain refused to accept this information. We started my rehabilitation with photos. After dinner, my parents took out the family album and showed me photos from birth to today. The most recent was a photo from that very birthday, when I ran to my mother in the bedroom, kissed her, and Dad captured the moment and then printed it out. They told me a story at all ages, but I didn't remember anything. It seemed to me that I was watching someone's TV series, but not about myself. It was terrible not to remember. The first few days we looked at the photos. Then my dad took me for a walk to my favorite places, like parks, squares, bought my favorite ice cream, snacks. My mother cooked only my favorite dishes. It has become a tradition to gather in the living room after dinner and look at the album. Then we moved on to Plan B. My parents invited 1 or 2 people I knew to the house, including my friends. To be honest, I was just getting to know them, so I couldn't open up like I used to. They told me a lot about myself, about secrets that I didn't remember, so I didn't feel it was my own. But our therapies were not successful. A whole year passed in this way. During this time, I have already got used to many people. I have formed relationships with others. I said that I had changed, and it was true. I could never be the same again. Is it even possible after this? Sometimes I saw my father or mother crying at night, worried about me. My father blamed himself all the time for taking me with him, for not going to get the flowers himself. But my mother told him that the main thing was that I was alive. They loved me. I could see that, and I probably loved them too, but right now I was indifferent to almost everything except music and diary entries. By the way, I reread the diary. Turns out, I liked a guy from high school named Matthew. We had our first kiss just before the accident, and I didn't even say hello to him after. He probably thought he was a bad kisser. But in any case, I didn't remember that, nor did I remember liking him. The conclusion is that I didn't really like him, or I would have felt it again. And then I got depressed, because so much effort had been invested. A lot of work had been done. During the year, I visited a lot of psychologists, neurologists. I was put into hypnosis, trying to fill in the gaps in my memory. And I saved up memories for 15 years and lost them in an instant. Can you imagine what it's like? When life is completely erased, you feel like a lost person, the loneliest in the universe. Gradually, I began to close in on myself. I no longer wanted to review photos or communicate with old or new friends. Walk around my favorite places. I did not want anything. And then I found myself thinking that I had even stopped dreaming. I just wanted to cry with resentment. One of those days, I left home and rode my bike to that store. I was drawn there. After walking among the shelves of appliances, I found the oven that was at our house. Then I got out and drove towards the road. Suddenly, I felt dizzy and fell on my bike right in the middle of the roadway. At this moment, a car was flying towards me. I was scared and screamed violently, covering my face with my hands. Immediately, I felt someone pull me sharply to the side. It was Matthew. It turns out that he was also in the store. They bought something for their house. At the sight of him, I had a sharp headache. I shouted his name and lost consciousness. I woke up in the hospital again. The same pain in the head, nausea, and confusion. I was examined by the same doctor, and my parents were standing next to me and crying. The doctor asked me my name, and I lay there in silence. My mother then started to get hysterical, and I suddenly looked at her and asked, "Mom, do you like peonies?" I chose them myself. My memory came back to me as suddenly as it had gone. It turns out that in my case, I was helped by stress and Matthew, who saved my life. By the way, I agreed to go on a second date with him. Now I fill my life with new memories and old ones at the same time. So life is getting better. And I will tell you one thing. Please carefully cross the road.